Okay, welcome everyone to January 2023 Aerobridge webinar. In this webinar, I'm going to go over some of the latest features around Aerobridge. If you are new to Aerobridge, Aerobridge is an open source community and a management server for your drone supply chains and what we call as trusted flights. We are an open source community. We work via Discord. I'm going to show you the details of this. Let's begin. My name is Rishi, and I run a company called Open Skies Aerial Technology Limited, and we build Aerobridge as a part of our open source work. Basically, there is a UTM solution called Flight Blender and Flight Spotlight, which is also fully open source that supports some of the standards compliant services. And Aerobridge is focused on drone supply chain, design manufacturing, and more importantly, components tracking and trusted flights. So Open Skies maintains these projects in GitHub, on GitHub via the community, and we're going to talk specifically about Aerobridge, which you see on the left-hand side of the screen. So what is Aerobridge? Firstly, Aerobridge is a management server. So this is a piece of software that you can deploy in your company to manage your flight operations. It really provides two things that are important. One, what we call as trusted flights, so adding permissions to individuals and entities within your company for flying. And then the other part is components tracking and supply chain management, which is what we will focus on today. So in addition to the management server that you also have what we call as a link to the vehicle via Aerobridge Mavlink. So this is the kind of piece of software that moves all these permissions and digital artifacts between the vehicle and the management server. And in addition, we have what we call as reference hardware designs. So if you look back at some of our webinars prior, you should be able to see, for example, the F1 drone reference hardware, the N1 drone reference hardware, and so on. And I'm going to show you very briefly all of that as well. Now, let's talk about why Aerobridge is interesting and a little bit about trusted flights and supply chain management. With trusted flights, we are giving manufacturers and operator control over what software can run or cannot run by refusing unsigned hardware. So this, you can think of it as adding a security layer to our flight operations. And also it's secured against the owner, but for it as well. In addition, because we have components management, which we will get into shortly, you can start to do incident management for your operations. If you're a drone service provider, you can start to track incidents in your operations, among other things. In the same way, as I said to you, we have the Aerobridge F1 and the N1 open sort of definition of small UAS. So we have basically made it public, a bill of materials for F1 and N1 for building your own drones as well. So let's take a look at how this looks like. This is Aerobridge. If you go to opensource.aerobridge.io, you will see all the details of the Aerobridge stack, the N1 and the F1 hardware, and so on. By the way, we recently moved to Discord from Slack. So if you are new to the community, just go to opensource.aerobridge.io, and then in the Get Involved section, there is a request access. You will be then invited to the Discord channel, which is where all these decisions happen. This is the F1 drone. So if you go to f1.aerobridge.io, it will show you the bill of materials. So we are in this open bill of materials and open supply chain sort of world. And so you have a build, for example, and then of course you can assemble and sort of fly it yourself. And in the same way, we have what is known as a nano drone with a estimated flight time of 15 minutes. And this is close to about 600 or 700 grams drone. So we are building these F1 and N1, and then these can then be built by yourself, or the management server can take care of any drones that you may have for yourself. The idea here being that we are integrating the supply chain and manufacturing with flights of this drone. These are the URLs that I just shared with you, F1 and N1 drone. And let's talk a little bit about the main content of today's webinar, which is component management and supply chain operations within your drone. Most drone service providers or drone manufacturers look like this. It's a big workshop where people are assembling and manufacturing drones and frames, and sort of there are these parts and so on. Obviously, this is the way manufacturing and assembly and drone service providers work. And what Aerobridge gives you is the digital record-keeping system for operations that happen here. Now, I don't have to tell you this, for a drone service provider or a drone manufacturer, inventory management and supply chain management is very difficult, especially when it comes to compliance and record keeping. In addition, you have to do sort of part and component organization. So how many parts do you have? How much inventory you have? What happened to the drone when you were flying that you have to replace a part and so on? So that's hard. And then, of course, the final piece of this is your supplier management. Who is providing you these parts? Do they give you the best deal? Are there other things, other shops available which can provide you with these parts? So a lot of this information is either stored in Excel or is kind of like a professional or trade knowledge within the minds of people operating in the drone service provider or the manufacturer. And the Aerobridge server provides you with a digital record-keeping system of it. What we're going to talk to you today is about how does this all fit in and how can you use this to do incident management. And obviously at the moment, when you have an incident, the drone hits a tree and so on, you sort of have to make a record of it, replace the parts, and do it basically without any online and digital support. Now, because Aerobridge understands your drone's bill of materials, you can then do very interesting things as far as incident management is concerned. So let's take a look at how this looks like. I'm going to go to aerobridge.io. So if I go to aerobridge.io, you will see here that's our homepage. And then if I say get started, it will take you to my page. Here you have the digital supply chain and trusted flights portal. So I sign in. I'm asked to log in. So you can have this for yourself if you want. There are instructions on the website for this. So let me just log in. So if you are a drone service provider or manufacturer, you can get a portal for yourself, and I go to Launchpad. Here, if you're familiar with Aerobridge, as I said to you, you can have your entire supply chain mapped out. So who's supplying the parts, who's manufacturing the parts. If you are a service provider or different entities providing different kinds of services, you can keep records of that. In this case, we have the F1 drone. So we have one aircraft. Of course, you can have many. So you have this basic fleet management solution as well in there. And this F1, of course, has these 13 parts, as you can see. So we can add your bill of materials and your vehicle's details into this. So you add the F1. And let's say, just for the sake of our demonstration, we've had an incident where during flight, the propellers broke. So I have this image here. Basically, I got this off the internet. Essentially, when the propellers break, you have to replace it. So I'm going to show you this workflow. So imagine you had an incident during flight, and I'm going to show you how do you report and replace the parts physically and in Aerobridge. So I'm just going to say first report an incident. So this incident happened on the F1 drone. So I'm going to do that. It says pick an incident photo. So the first thing you have to do is to upload a photo. So of course I have to upload it. So I'm going to do it from my desktop. That's my photo. And then this is a photo. So broken propellers hit a tree, something like that. So then I hit save. So I have uploaded my picture into Aerobridge. I then go to trusted flights and aircraft, and I'm going to start my process again, report an incident. Of course, now I have my photo. I select the photo. It's in the F1 drone. Now, because Aerobridge understands your drone's bill of materials, you can start to say, well, this was the propellers that was impacted. And then I said something like, add a gust of wind, drone hit a tree, propellers need replacement, right? Something like that. Here we go. And then you have to specify what is the new status of the part. It could be damaged, it could be destroyed. Let's say it's damaged. And then, of course, I have a photo. So now I'm reporting an incident. I'm specifying the part, and Aerobridge understands your bill of materials, so you can know exactly where it happened. And then I say add an incident. And of course, you have this incident over here. Now, if I go back to my aircraft, you will see that now, because I have reported an incident, the aircraft is disabled and the parts need review. So let's take a look at that. So I'm going to see this. Now, here you see components that need review is the propellers, and then these are the assembled components. So now, as I said to you, Aerobridge understands your bill of materials. So here you have a 3D view of it. So parts in red are the ones that are damaged. So you can link your bill of materials to an actual 3D model, a CAD model that you may have or that may use for manufacturing. So in this case, this is the CAD model for the F1 drone. And we are saying these parts are missing. So you can visually see what's happening with these parts. Now here, you can see here that there are 0 parts available for installation because the system doesn't know that you have additional parts. Let's say you buy it from your shop and then you have an invoice that is associated with it. Or you buy propellers by the 10s or the 50, and then you have an invoice from a few months ago or a few weeks ago of the last time you bought it. So you have that flexibility. In this case, I'm going to say I'm going to acknowledge custody of a new part. So I press here. It says upload an invoice or a receipt first. So I do the same thing. By now, you should be familiar. Upload the invoice. I'm going to say this is an invoice, new propellers for F1, something like that. So now you have an invoice and a receipt. I go back to my assembly. Here, the parts need review. I can show it in 3D if I want to. This looks okay. Now I'm going to say, I have some propellers in my inventory, and then I'm going to replace it on the drone. So I say, okay, I have this. This is the supplier part, as I said to you, because it understands the bill of materials. You can exactly specify which kind of part it is. And then invoice receipt is, of course, this one. And then the component assembly could be D1E, for example, something like that. So it's a code that we can use to identify which one it was. And then I press add a component. Of course, I have to select the new propellers. And that's the receipt. See, now you have one available for installation. Let's say now you have installed it, right? So then I say finally add to assembly, give it a minute. Now you will see that the assembly is complete. See, it's all black. The parts in red are not there. What just happened? We reported an incident. We identified the component in the BOM. We acknowledged custody of a new one, replaced it physically, and replaced it digitally. So now you have a one-to-one mapping between the physical actions that you take on the workshop and a system in 3D to understand all of this. Now, there are some interesting things you can do. You can, because now you have analytics, you can start to say, well, how many propellers were broken? How many incidents do I have? How many drones are affected? Are there particular pilots or particular missions that you can do? So you can do all kinds of analytics with this and link them to parts and components and the supply chain. This is what we call as the digital supply chain for modern drone operations and service providers. That's the demo that I just showed you. What's interesting about Aerobridge is that you can now have a very sophisticated record-keeping and compliance management system for your drone operations. So if you're a drone service provider, you can say goodbye to Excel, goodbye to making notes on a notebook. You can say goodbye to kind of just having a conversation with your colleague. All of your information is centrally stored. And as I said to you, we can start to include your bill of materials, your drones into it. If you are using commercial off-the-shelf stuff, we can add that as well, of course. My name is Rishi again. I am the lead developer of Aerobridge. This is a community project. We talked about supply chain management and parts management. The next time we'll talk about trusted flights. If you want to join, please go to opensource.aerobridge.io. There is a Get Involved section, and there is a request to join. We all work via Discord, and we meet on Saturday evenings on the phone, of course, on Discord, and these decisions are made there. Thank you.